Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. I know we just did a poll, and some of you had the lunch, some of you not had the lunch. So some of you are braving, and I know lunch is around the corner. So before all those who had lunch, I think we'll try and keep it as exciting, not to bore you. And people who are waiting for the lunch, we really want to make sure that it's worth your time here, because we are between your lunch and that. So thank you, everyone, again. We have a very interesting topic today. One of the two hot trends which are trending this time. One is AI, and second is GCC. And we're going to talk about both. Both have a story, and the story is intertwined because both have been around for a long, long time. At least if I go back in my time, is a different era altogether. I'm come from a old generation, unlike many of you were Gen Zs and millennial. The first GCC I heard about, the development center, right here in Bangalore, Texas Instruments. Way back in mid-80s, they opened up the development center. And since then, it has been going on, and now we are talking about more than 1,800 GCCs, and which is likely to go up to 2,400 by 2030. They employ directly about 20 lakhs employees, which is likely to go further up to, some estimate says, up to 40 lakhs, about 2 million to 4 million, which is a large, large number. And the same story goes with AI, right? AI is not new in many ways. AI got developed in lab way back in mid-50s, but it has really, really become a lot more a name and a day-to-day in our lives only in the last couple of years with the advent of Gen AI and now agentic. And same with GCCs, that it just accelerated in the last couple of years. So we're going to talk about these two topics. How are they related? Can they live with each other? Can they complement each other? Can AI enable the speed and provide the foresight to GCCs? Can GCC provide that complexity and scale to AI to experiment? It is all about the art of possibility, or is it about replacement, or is it about reinvention? So we're going to talk about all those topics. And as we talk about all these topics, we have a very powerhouse, full-packed panel with Saraswathi on one side and Sanjay on the other side, and John there, traveling all the way for us. So we'll have very interesting discussions and a very rich panel here. So we'll just kick off with the big picture. Now, the first thing is, what strategic shifts GCC should take in this agentic era? And should GCCs continue to play an efficiency game or an operational efficiency game, or do they have a now seat on the strategic table? So in that regard, maybe I start with Saraswathi for you first, that how are you seeing the shift in your organization where GCCs have evolved from a, the efficiency play or a play from innovation to more of a strategic discussions and importance?
Thank you. Thank you so much. First of all, thanks for being here. It's overwhelming to see so many of you without lunch still sitting here. Really appreciate. And big thanks to Cypher for, I don't know, they just keep scaling up, and the expectation just keeps going high. But thanks for all the wonderful arrangements. I think big round of applause to the Cypher team. So GCCs, like you said, Manish, it's evolving, right? Depending on where we are on the maturity curve. If we are setting up something new, we all have to start from scratch. You cannot run without learning to walk, right? So initially, everybody comes for cost arbitrage, and we cannot take away that element of cost arbitrage when it comes to India. That's our strength, and we should keep that as it is. But eventually, it's not just the cost that we are here for. There has to be value that we provide. business value, which is customer-centric value, but also innovation. Now, innovation, when we talk about, it's not disruptive innovation where we break everything and then create something new, but it's also in the ways of how do we incrementally add value in everything we do today versus tomorrow, right? How are we doing that? Now, this does require us to think differently, because the only thing we measure today in GCCs typically is what is the cost, how much have we spent, and we report that what is come in and what have we spent, what has been the saving. But that metric need to change, right? Today, we are adding value. Even if it is a new center, we are adding value. But we are not necessarily measuring that. If we start to measure every single element that we contribute, then we are already innovating from day one. Even the most mature GCCs do not measure that today. So are we going to be innovation center? I think we already are. We are adding value. We are adding innovation to the work that we do. As long as we don't think innovation as a corner R&D room, if we are enhancing anything that we are doing at work, are we doing it today? Yeah, absolutely. Are we measuring it? No. So our KPIs of how we measure success when it comes to GCCs, in either any technology, AI or otherwise, actually leads us to contributing to the value. And that value is where we need to start measuring. And then, of course, that comes with then saying, how do we upskill people? How do we upskill the talent and all of those? But to me, the first parameter that needs to change is also the definition of success, how we are measuring. So instead of saying we are going to be value-based centric or value-centric GCCs or innovation-based organization, I think let's start saying we're already doing it. Let's start measuring. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Saraswathi. And John, how are you seeing this shift in your organization?
First of all, thank you, Manish, for being our moderator today. Had some good times with them in the lounge, learned a lot in the short amount of time that we've been together. So I believe Burns & McDonnell has a unique position and perspective on this as we're entering into our early stages of building out our capabilities. It's interesting because we're faced with that cost savings. You know, that's the story you start with. That's the story that's hard to argue with. But when you switch over to value, I agree, we're already doing it. It's how do we tell that story, and then how do we show that to the decision makers that have subjective thoughts around what that value is. So we have specific products that we're building that we can track some ROI on, but also it kind of goes more towards the customer service. So our group services our internal users the most. So the more customer service we have, the better customer service we have, the continuous delivery increases the subjective perspective of the value add, of the hard things that can't be measured. So for instance, I was telling the story, we started with zeros on the scoreboard this year. In January, we kind of hung our shingle out as a GDC. We have an office in Bangalore and an office in Mumbai. And we had zeros on the board. We didn't have anybody on the team. We didn't have any projects. And we focused on our customer experience. We focused on how do we tell the story of the operational efficiency that was already there at some level, and how do we scale and increase capacity and cut cost. We were able to cut costs upwards of 80%. But also focusing on that customer experience, we drove demand up to over 120 projects asked from our business units that was well over 100,000 technical labor hours that we scoped and put on our books. So it's a fine mix that we see today, and we have a lot to learn just iterating through it, listening to our business units, focusing on the use cases that are solving real business problems. That tends to be where our successes are.
I can just add, one thing is we do start with back office work at GCCs, but I think it's important to have that seat on the table. I think that was your question also. That's when we start to change the narrative of what GCC is, right? Because if we are in the back end, if we are not in the ELT or executive team, we hear the after stories of the decision. We are not the decision makers. To change that back office narrative to how we are adding value, we have to be on that table. And that is what we need to change also if that's not happening.
Yeah. I think this is very well said, and I think we need to have a seat on the table. But the technology is one part, and AI, I'm sure that we'll figure it out. But the bigger thing there is that the mindset. And Sanjay, if I come to you, that what is that one trait, and mindset comes from the leadership, right? What is one mindset or one trait or one thing which leaders should need to think differently about in today's world in context of GCC and AI, and how they can be leveraged for it?
I would say that we are at the crux, at the point where a decision needs to be taken, action has to be taken on how we evolve. Because AI has been there for very long. GCCs have been there for even longer, right? It's just the pace of the disruption that has shifted. It was going at a steady pace, and suddenly we see a parabolic shift. Now, how do we navigate that shift becomes so critical. So I've been in multiple discussions with few of the consultants saying that how do we do change management? I look at AI at 3 different levels. One is obviously internal productivity. How can we look at possibilities to increase the speed of the deliverables that we were already doing? I look at the next level as a space where we are actually helping the users of the products or whatever we work on. It could be content generation, it could be music generation, it could be digital products, any of those areas. How can my user benefit from me being able to use AI in that? And the third aspect is creating a completely disruptive business model through AI. If we look at these 3 levels, we need every person in the organization to shift the mindset. Because when you are developing a product, you should start thinking, saying that, can AI help me change the way my user is using my product? It cannot be done by a data scientist. It needs to be done by every single person who is working on that product. Every developer needs to think, saying that, can one of the tool make me faster? Can it enable me? Right? And then comes the other aspect that each of us needs to watch the business. There is no AI-specific business case. That's my realization in the past 1 year. We have tried very hard to create business cases around AI solutions, and we realized, no, AI solutions are not what sells. What sells is a solution enabled by AI, right? So when we are talking from that perspective, that understanding is little different from what traditionally we used to think. So I think it's a full change management of how the organization has to evolve. I'm so happy to see everyone here, right? If we are not constantly thinking about it, probably we will be dinosaurs in 5 years. And we don't want to be that. That's my perspective on that.
No, that's very well said. And the mindset where the thing starts. And I think this is happening at a speed and executed at a pace which we have never seen ever in the past in the technology, and how it has evolved. Now, coming from the big picture to now the crux of it, which is all about talents and the platforms, and how do we really do that in our GCC, the questions arise, are we going to be the GCCs are going to be the fountainhead for building those platforms and bring that innovation? Or in doing that, are we going to adopt or train our talent? Or are we going to get swept away by that? So these are the questions which arise. And in that sense, I know, John, you are early in this journey. So how do you really see it in the sense that you see adoption of the platforms, or you building the platforms in-house, or it is a hybrid? How do you really see that evolving?
So again, at Burns McDonnell, we're kind of in a unique position because we're a private company that we're doing well. The market that we're in, the industry we're in, is trending very well. So we essentially own everything, right? So we've bought platforms, we've hired partners, we've done strategic partnerships. and what it really is boiling down to for us is it's a hybrid approach, right? You can't outsource the business context and what the business problems are that you want to solve. And really, we as tech leaders and technologists, it's not about upskilling just the technology folks, but also upskilling the rest of the organization. So it's about the whole business, our whole organization readiness and maturity in a lot of different states of what we're in, because the shiny object, if you will, tends to always hit a roadblock, right? So if we can upskill in all aspects of the area to get our world headquarters to understand what it takes to upskill or to hire the right talent and maintain the right talent for specific reasons, and articulate the exact why tied to business outcomes and value, that's where we've seen the most advantages for us to be able to plan for year over year. And even with the speed of everything, we've had to adjust our planning to quarter over quarter with resourcing and strategic partnerships. So.
Oh, that's great. And I think that we all care about our jobs, and I think that's one thing which is running in everybody's mind. And I think I want both Sanjay and Saraswathi, your views on the fact that what will be the human edge in this agentic space when we are looking at our talent and looking at our GCCs. Where do you see this human edge remaining for us, and how do we really continue to maintain that edge?
We were just joking on the table. I promised not to tell this, but then I'm itching to say it, right? Humans are irrational any point of time. As long as we are irrational, I don't think agents can take that irrationality and take away the things that we do. But that's on the lighter note, right? We can, all the tools can, especially AI, the speed at which everything gets learned, it's impossible for us humans to learn everything, identify the pattern so fast, and then come to a conclusive decision that any AI solution can build. But what remains, and okay, I work for Lightcast, which is, we look at 200 countries' data in terms of what is the job market. Where are we evolving? What is the future skill? What is that element that is going to be remaining intact in the coming days where humans are needed, right? We talk about AI taking jobs. Again, on a lighter note, if everything AI is doing and we have to just sit at home, if there's no consumerism, I'm sure no business will survive, so we'll have to pull humans back again to bring in the consumerism. So I don't see AI taking away all the jobs like we are getting scared. Will different jobs evolve? Absolutely. So when we do the research in Lightcast, there are jobs that didn't exist 4 years back that we are seeing today, like the AI ethics. That's a big thing that didn't exist, but there is so much need, ethics officer to be there in every organization. That's a new job that is coming which didn't exist, right? But what remains intact is the problem-solving skill. Empathy. Empathy is a huge element, and there's no doubt that in the end, everybody sees this as a combination of human plus AI. It's never AI replacing humans. It's AI is going to be your agent. Now, how do you use your agent is the human intelligence. So empathy, problem solving, innovative mindset, curiosity, all these elements are evolving more as a stronger element, at least from our research, where we see this is what we are going to evaluate everybody more and more. And as you are seeing already, there are a lot of organizations which are saying, I don't need a degree, as long as you have skills. Now, what are these skills, right? That is what the future skill is talking about, and I'm happy to share that report of future skills that we have released. I'll share it with Bhaskar and team, and then maybe they can circulate, which talks about what is that mandatory skills that human needs to have for the future skills, which will enable us to be indispensable. That is what is going to be unique to how we survive and thrive in the future. Tools come, tools go, AI will be there. Definitely AI is disrupting everything that we do. But how do we use human intelligence to manage and bring in that balance between human and AI is what is going to be the change in the future.
If I can add, we have seen multiple disruptions. The way the mobile phones came, the way the digital cameras came, and we know how those things disrupted the way we live our life. When the pandemic came, we realized everybody can work from home, right? Those were disruptions, and as humans, we have survived it. And we have evolved through that situation. AI will be a similar disruption in that path. The difference is, AI will be here for real, for a lifetime that we are going to see in future. That basically means we cannot resist it. We have to accept it and walk with it. Now, what would that mean? There would be, it's not a doomsday prediction, it's a very known fact that there are jobs which will get impacted. For example, very, very repetitive jobs. It would change the way that we do the work. But then, human in the loop is going to be there for a pretty good long amount of time. Because I don't think, as humans, we do have some trust deficit at some point of time, right? We don't believe in our machines all the time. We want to keep an eye on what they are doing. So human in the loop will remain for a good amount of time. Now, that changes the way all of us work. We have to become SMEs, subject matter experts. We have to become creators or people who can think beyond a task, because the task might get done by the AI. Creating the strategy, creating the big picture, creating the thought process on what next the human will need is a very human aspect. And we all will have to evolve. There is an effort. But my take is we can do that very easily, and we will take that path together.
No, I think this is very well said, that I think as AI will augment human, our roles will become a lot more strategic. It will require a kind of a thing which make us possible to do things which were not even dreamt or imagined in the past. So that's going to happen, as Sanjay, you just said. And now that we have seen that there is a coexistence, now we have seen there is a symbiotic relationship between GCCs and humans and the AI, the next question comes is, how do we really enable it in the context of GCCs? And how do we really see that who drives this innovation? Is it still the global headquarters which drives those innovations, or is it the local leaders who will drive it in GCCs? Because that's where the bulk of the talent and the buzz is. So who will drive it and who will take those risks? Where will the IP resides? So those are the bigger questions which will emerge with that. So maybe, John, you may want to start reflecting on it, and maybe Saraswathi, you could come to back.
Sure. So this is a pretty interesting topic for us, because we have this debate all the time, just throughout our whole organization for innovation as a whole. So collectively, we feel like innovation should stay on the edge, is close to our customers, close to the people that are solving our customers' problems. So the innovation ideas start there, but they manifest themselves, and then doing the work, building the solutions, doing the innovative technology to implement the solution, there has to be clear ownership and accountability for delivery of those things. So where we see a lot of true, I'll say, world headquarter innovation approaches is that accountability, that ownership is at a surface level, right? And that's where they should stay. We don't feel like the solution or the innovation needs to stay in a world headquarter. We feel that wherever that capacity is needs to have the same skill sets in both places, but ownership and accountability of delivery of that solution has to be taken and has to be seen through.
Right.
I think it's a co-creation, right? It cannot sit in one place or the other. For all practical purposes, GCC is the right hand, left hand of the organization from the headquarters. So it has to be a co-creation because you cannot sit in isolation, create something that is not going to be implemented. It's good to have fun, but unless it is solving for business case, like Sanjay said, whatever innovation we do, it's not going to be helpful or useful. With that said, again, I come back to what I said. How are we measuring this innovation, right? And if we are not ready to take risk, and when I talk about risk, also to what you asked, Manish, is leadership ready to take risk? We will fail when we innovate. If we don't probably get the best solution in the first iteration. Is leadership ready to take that accountability? How do we ring fence people from penalizing because some innovation failed? Those are also the elements we need to talk about when we are talking about innovation. It's just not sitting in the corner room and creating some solution. It has to be co-creation. It has to be measured for success. It has to be in a way that we are not penalizing risk. It has to be agile. It has to be iterative. And also the fact that we should make sure it is between cross-functional, because we often tend to think innovation has to come from one team, but it never happens unless you understand or connect the dots and understand the holistic workflow. So it has to be cross-functional as well.
Manish, if I can just quickly add, what we have seen as an experience is the accountability or the skin in the game has to be with the business. Because what we are seeing is when we own and deliver, the technology organization owns and delivers, adoption is very low. So if the innovation and the technology ownership has to be a lot with GCC, the adoption and the selling aspect has to be a lot with business. And that comes back to co-creation. But
you're absolutely right, Sanjay, but I think what is also happening is GCCs are maturing as they are moving from center of excellence to, or rather cost center to center of excellence to now center of innovation. And AI is now accelerating the journey. So what you see is that India is no more a GCC hub for the tech. It is about business functions as well. And a lot of business functions, strategic roles are now getting done out of GCCs because of the simple reason that the ecosystem exists. And that's what my next segue is, that now that there is a ecosystem whereby you have GCCs and GCCs across different industries. And then you have partner ecosystem, which is the large part of product and services organization. And then you have a huge hub of startups. Now, how do you really work together in that sense? And, I can relate to our example that, I come from the life sciences industry. We serve all the top pharma companies. And now as they're opening up their GCCs, we are finding to work with them as partners in a way that we have never thought about it. So this is about that art of possibility, which is never even thought about, that how will it happen? We always see them as a kind of a competitor. But this is just opening up the areas and possibilities of partnering and doing problems which we have never solved before. So in that sense, how do you really see GCCs engaging in this AI journey with the startups and the academia in India's region specifically? And I think maybe Sanjay, you can dwell upon it because you talk about it.
Sure. So what we realized is the biggest challenge or the risk we have in our mind is data security. So it brings in a lot of risk averseness towards onboarding a partner. But once a trust gets built, there's a lot that comes through co-creation. And co-creation comes from startups. I was just looking up, there are probably 70,000 startups now who brand themselves as AI startups. And then there are the established service providers who are also deep into AI. So in the organization I represent, we are having partners helping us out with the basic platforms, wherever there are no IP risks, etc. But where there are some AI projects where probably the 15 people who work on it cannot even trade in the shares of the organization because the context is different or confidential. Those areas we are very clear that we will not be able to. So there's an IP aspect, there's a data privacy aspect which comes into the picture, but without the ecosystem, without utilizing the ecosystem, GCCs are going to go slow and fade away. So it's needed that we use and leverage the ecosystem.
No, I think as you just said, I think this is a very important aspect of data privacy and compliances, and you talked about the ethics part of it. So I think we're not touching that point a little bit because of the time, but I think I want to talk about one other important topic, which is about...
Manish, I just have one more element to that partnership, right? We all know that the next generation actually is the AI first generation. I think there's also a lot of strength with the collaboration with the industry, and we have been trying to experiment that with few institutes. Wonderful results, because they think AI first, and we are able to get a lot more leverage from them as well. To me, it's like when we host parties, having a potluck, right? It eases out everybody's life because everybody brings in different dishes, which is their strength, and you actually have a wonderful buffet, and then it gives you option of what you want to have instead of one creating everything by themselves, which is probably pathetic. That to me is how the partnership is working.
Great. So I think this is all, we have all seen that how innovation can be externalized and coexisted and co-built by collaborating with a large ecosystem, which is the biggest strength. I would call it India as a country provides for GCCs and AI and taking it forward. So John, in that regard, as you're building your GCC here, how are you going to make it future-proof? How are you going to ensure that one thing that you should not do here?
Well, I have a really good team sitting right here on the front row, so that's one way. Future-proof, just the whole aspect of kind of our initial GDC approach and evolve into a GCC. It's focus on the business problems at hand, focus on the talent, focus on the user experience for doing business with us, so that we can continue to always deliver problem-solving techniques and solutions to our organization at a cost-effective measure. So it's not necessarily about any one thing, it's about a collective approach to everything.
And if you...
Manish, I think the biggest challenge for us in GCC is we don't have visibility to end user or the customer. So often we are delivering, assuming a lot of things about customer, and we don't necessarily understand the problem statement the way it should be understood. One way to solve for it is actually bring the business to India. I don't think if there's a business that is working in another country, there's no reason why it should not work in India. That actually brings a lot of exposure to everybody who's working here to understand what we are solving for. Otherwise, connecting those dots, we will try to do, but to add value, we should be able to do that, right? So I think that's one way to solve for it. All of us should go back and aim to bring the business to India. We'll solve for some of the trade war as well.
Absolutely. And Sanjay, do you have any insight based on your experience that one thing the GCC should not be thinking about and doing and change in this AI era?
I would say it's a lifestyle change. And if we avoid that lifestyle change, we will mess up. We will become, so Gartner puts GCCs into multiple buckets. We say fading GCC, which basically we are working the traditional way and we will fade away slowly. There's the strategic, there's the platform. There are 4 different types of GCC based on various parameters. I would say when I talk about lifestyle change, it's about when we hire. Are we hiring the talent which will move with the changing trends? When we train, are we getting the right trainings in place, the right tools in place? Are we creating an ecosystem which is enabling the adoption of the newer technologies available? If we avoid these, probably we will become a fading GCC, and that's something we don't want to.
Wonderful. No, I know we have a very wonderful audience and sitting here with patience. And I really want to make sure that we leverage their knowledge and insights from here as well. So I'll open up the floor for the questions or anything that you want to ask us at this time about these two very interesting topics. There's a question there, there's a person there.